In 1941, the United States government created a flight program specifically designed to fail. The men they put in it were expected to prove what the government already believed, that black men could not fly. What those men did instead changed the United States military forever. Have you ever walked into a situation where the first thing people noticed about you makes them treat you differently?
Not in a specific situation, but when I used to work in a laundromat, I look Mexican, Hispanic, and people who will go to drop off their laundry for us to wash it, some of them will assume that I didn't speak any English. So they will go in there and try to talk to me with that broken English. Like I let them finish their sentence because like I feel uncomfortable, but not because it makes me feel, angry or embarrassed, but because it's like, why are you talking to me like that, right? And, then whenever it was my time to talk to them back, I will answer to them, full on sentence in English. And like, oh, you speak English. I'm like, yeah. And that happened to me many times. It was always at the laundromat because, you had to like pretty much talk to the customers. And it was always the people that didn't speak Spanish that would talk to me like in the broken English or try to speak to me in Spanish.
I used to work in a call center giving technical support for a mobile phone company in the United States. I'm not going to say the name, but it was in the Dominican Republic, but I would give support to a company here in America. English was not my first language, as you know, and my accent, I have a very Dominican accent.
Now you
Very,
don't.
yes, very heavy. And it made the job really hard, harder than it should have been. So from the moment a customer picked up the phone, I had 30 seconds before you could hear the sigh, like the pause. Sometimes they would just say it, like, can I just speak with someone else? Sometimes they would not say anything, but you could feel it in the way they answer your questions. Short, impatient. So they were halfway out of the conversation before I could actually help them. And I was really good at my job. I remember that. And in the technical sense, anyway, I knew what I was doing. So I could solve their problems. But my accent was the first thing that they heard. And for some of them, it was the only thing that they heard. I remember getting off the calls and just sitting there thinking, like, how do I get past this? How do I get them to trust me long enough to let me help them? Most of us have walked into some version of that wall, a room where the assumption about who you are arrives before you do, where the first thing people notice about you becomes the only thing standing between you and being heard. Maybe it is an accent, maybe it is your age, your background, what you look like, where you went to school or did not go. Maybe it is a reputation you did not choose, or a space that was simply never designed with someone like you in mind. And when that happens, when you feel the wall go up, something inside you has to decide what to do next. Most people have never been handed a wall quite like the one group of black men in Alabama in 1941. Their wall was not a feeling. It was an official government policy. It was written down, signed, and filed. And it says, in plain language, that they were not capable. What they did with this assumption is one of the most inspiring stories in American history. It is 1941. The United States is on the edge of World War II. The country is not yet in the fight. Pearl Harbor is still months away. But the military is already preparing, recruiting, training, building the most powerful fighting force in American history. And in that process, a question surfaces that the Army Air Corps has a very clear answer to. Can black men fly? The official position, backed by a 1925 War Department report, is no. The report states that black men lack the intelligence, the discipline, and the temperament to operate high-performance aircraft in combat. This is not a fringe position held by a few bad actors. This is the official military doctrine written down, filed, and used to justify keeping black men out of the cockpit for decades. It is the policy. And it's not a new argument. Black aviators have been trying to fly for the military since World War I. In 1917, black men applied to become aerial observers and were rejected outright. One pilot, Eugene Bullard, ended up flying for the French Air Service during World War I because the American military refused to take him. He served with distinction while his own country rejects him. By the late 1930s, the pressure to change this is building up, and the government can no longer fully contain it. Civil rights organizations are pushing hard. The press is calling out the injustice. African American men and women across the country are enlisting in large numbers, willing to fight for a country that treats them as second-class citizens. In 1939, two black pilots fly a small plane from Chicago to Washington, D.C., specifically to make this argument in person to members of Congress. One of the senators they meet is Harry Truman. He is moved by what they say. The pressure eventually reaches President Roosevelt, and Roosevelt, facing a re-election campaign and a war, makes a decision. Fine, we'll let them try. This is not a genuine opportunity. It's a test, they already believe. The program being established at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama is meant to prove their conclusion right, once and for all. One Tuskegee Airman puts it plainly years later. The flying school, he says, was programmed to fail. The standards are set deliberately high. The entrance requirements are more demanding than those at white training programs. People are dropping off fast. The very first class has 13 cadets, and only 5 earn their wings. The facility is segregated, chronically underfunded, and sits in the middle of Jim Crow, Alabama. Everything about the setup is designed to produce failure, so the War Department can point to the results and say, "See, we told you." The system is rigged against them, but their excellence pushes them forward. The men who show up at Tuskegee are not who the War Department expects. Many of them are college graduates. Some have advanced degrees. They are engineers, teachers, lawyers, men who have spent their entire lives being told they are not enough. They arrive at Tuskegee with the specific kind of hunger that comes from being made to wait for something you know you can do. In March of 1941, something unusual happens at Tuskegee. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt visits the base. She has been a vocal supporter of giving black Americans the chance to fly. While she's there, the chief flight instructor, a black man named Charles Anderson, who have been flying since 1929, offers to take her up. The Secret Service is not pleased. Her advisors tell her it's not wise. She gets on the plane. They fly for 30 minutes. When they land, she has photographs taken. She brings those photographs back to Washington and shows them to her husband. An African American man flew the First Lady of the United States. It is a small thing and an enormous thing at the same time. It helps push Roosevelt to formally activate the program. The men who are accepted into the program understand immediately what is at stake. Every single one of them is representing more than themselves. Every dropout becomes evidence in someone else's argument. Every mistake is a data point for the people who want this program to end. They train harder than any other group. They study longer. They push themselves past the point that other programs would allow. Because they're not just flying to earn their wings, they're trying to change what this country believes about them. But the system does everything it can to make them fail. On the base, they are treated as officers in rank and as second-class citizens in practice. They eat separately. They sleep separately. Their facilities are inferior to those around them. When they travel off base into Alabama, Jim Crow is waiting. The same laws, humiliation, the same daily reminders of what the country they are training to defend actually thinks of them. At one camp, captured German soldiers were granted access to the officers only dining space. The Tuskegee Airmen are not. Enemy soldiers, men captured fighting against the United States, are treated with more dignity on American soil than American officers whose only offense is the color of their skin. They go back to the barracks. They open their flight manuals. They get up the next morning and keep training. In 1943, the Tuskegee Airmen deploy to North Africa, then to Italy, and then the war ends and they go home. They come home on the same ships as white veterans. They sat through the same storms on the Atlantic. They flew the same mission over the burning cities. They bled in the same war. When the ships dock, the celebrations begin. Parades, ceremonies, a grateful nation receiving its heroes. And the Tuskegee Airmen step off the boat into the same Jim Crow America they left. The same laws, the same signs, the same doors telling them where they can and cannot go. Some of them walk into airports they have been flying combat missions from and are told to use a different entrance. Others are attacked. Returning African American veterans face violence in the months after the war. In the very country they risked their lives to defend. The country has not changed, but what they prove over 15,000 missions against every attempt to make them fail, against a system designed to confirm their inferiority, is that hard work and excellence carried with purpose will eventually break through what prejudice tries to hold in place. In 1948, 3 years after the war ends, President Harry Truman signs an executive order desegregating the United States military. It is not a gift, it is a result. After 15,000 missions and a combat record that compares favorably to every other escort group in the war, the argument that men of color cannot serve alongside white men becomes impossible to sustain. The Tuskegee Airmen did not change America by demanding to be seen. They changed it by performing so undeniably that the people trying to ignore them ran out of ways to do it. The experiment, designed to confirm their inferiority, became the evidence that dismantled the policy built on that lie. That is what excellence does when it is carried with intention. The battle in front of you. It wins arguments that have not been made yet. It opens doors for people you will never meet. One of the Tuskegee Airmen later reflects on what they were up against. They said we didn't have the intelligence, the demeanor, the courage to be combat pilots. They learned differently. All we needed was a chance and training. What they built is this: the first African American commander of an Air Force base, a Tuskegee Airman. The first 3 black generals in the Air Force, all Tuskegee Airmen. The first African American 4-star general in American military history, a Tuskegee Airman. And in 2007, the surviving members of the group and their widows received the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest honor Congress can give. A black pilot in the United States today, a commander, a general, a decorated veteran, is standing on the ground the Tuskegee Airmen cleared. The path was not given, it was built, mission by mission, in the skies above North Africa and Italy and Germany, by men who understood that their excellence was not just for themselves. It was a weapon they were wielding on behalf of everyone who would come after them. The system was designed to confirm that they did not belong in the sky. They answered by becoming the pilots other soldiers trusted with their lives. In a world built to make them invisible, they became impossible to ignore. Excellence in the right hands is not just an achievement, it is the most powerful argument in the world. Sweetie, when you heard this program was literally designed to fail, what went through your mind?
What didn't go through my mind? I just wanted to know how much brainwashing do you need to have in order for you to believe that someone that is a different color than you can be dumber than you. How? I still don't understand it.
I recognize how awful America was back then for black people. And it's incredible how big the level of indignity, the unfairness that these men had to endure, even though they were willing to give their lives for their country. That's the crazy part. I don't really experience racism. And if I do, it's never going to be in the same level of the people back then. America has progressed and has improved in just several decades a lot. So I believe, I'm not sure if you agree, I think we live today as it was said in 1776. All men are created equal. Do you agree?
I guess 97% of it I believe is true
Come
today.
on. How okay, give me an example. Why is it that you say that?
You really want my answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, all men are created equal. I'm Mexican, whatever that means for anyone watching. But if you see the situation that's going on right now, it doesn't feel like all men are created equal.
Come on. You know what? Let's continue. So you have German prisoners of the war eating in the same mess the Tuskegee Airmen were barred from.
You know, it's like, it's crazy to even think about it. It's like, you're here with prisoners and then you're the one considered the lowest of the low. Like,
You are
what?
worse than the prisoner.
Exactly, like make that make sense just because you are black. The capability for a human to do evil or to think these things is just amazing. It's crazy.
And it is also a great reminder that the majority can be wrong, awfully wrong. The culture in America and the American institutions were captured by the dumbest idea. That was a
I
very
just want
dumb.
to know where this all started. Like,
Obviously, it's
I mean,
slavery, and then
obviously, like, okay, you think about slavery, you need to dehumanize a slave in order to consider a property because you're getting money off of it. Like, is this all because of money? Is that all there is? Money?
I think this is how it started. You have slaves, but that idea eventually becomes as part of the culture. The culture now finds excuses and reasons to oppress that person beyond being about money. You will find a lot of things that reinforce what you already believe. You see, the reason why this is happening is because black people are inferior, and that culture penetrates to the institutions.
I mean, we're
That
seeing it in today's society. So,
please explain how.
okay, first of all, the whole mentality that illegals are the ones doing all the crime and it's their fault that all the crime is happening. Just,
Okay,
you
I
know,
agree with you.
because one or two did it, then everyone is like that. And I think that's
Yes,
how it spreads. People
yes.
believing that those are facts and then just, I guess, making it true to themselves.
But you know what I noticed about this is the caliber of these men. It was greater than mine for sure because they have to endure all this and they still loved America. So here's the question that I have. How is it that these people with Jim Crow, with all the oppression, with all the mistreatment, love America more and appreciate it more than people today who actually have the freedom these people wanted? How is it that these people are willing to die for America, even though they are mistreated at home?
I think, like, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit of that, but I think it's more the fact of proving themselves because I believe that they probably went into the program knowing what it was all about. Because, I mean, they didn't make it like pretty or they didn't make the program to look appealing so they could just blindly join. I think that they knew what they were going for. They knew what this is about. And this is like, okay, we're going to prove them that they're wrong.
I think there is that. That's part of it. But you know what I think it is? It's both perspective and gratitude. And let me explain. Perspective because they know that the previous generation was enslaved. And even though they have it bad back then, in
It's not as bad.
is not as bad. And number two, I think Americans, black Americans and white Americans, they were more religious. Even when things are going really bad, you have God on your side. And so that love for America, that love for the country is tied to their love for God and their community and the church and the family. And so the more we turn against God, the more we tend to hate our country because we don't have that level of gratitude. You don't think so?
No, no, no. You make sense. It's just kind of like hit me with a rock right there.
And these men, they chose to stay with the bombers. Do you remember that part of the story?
Yes.
Instead of chasing individual glory. That decision cost them personally because everyone was trying to get the A's, the personal, frame and the glory. Do you think that most people would have made the same call?
It all depends on the person. And here's where it speaks values of who these people were. Because they knew, I guess, what their position was in society. And they rather picked the higher road. Because like if that would have me and be like, no, like do it yourself. You treated me this way. You can just go ahead and protect yourself. Why do you want me to protect you if you don't see me as equal as you? Because, if they were like, oh, these people don't know how to fly, they don't know how to do this, they ended up showing them that they needed them to protect them.
Do you
That
know
speaks a lot.
do you know the concept of the idea of double victory, especially back then?
No.
Double victory means victory against fascism abroad and victory against racism and segregation at home. They were trying to get double victory. That was the thing that they were focusing on.
And they did.
And they did. They definitely did. And that's something that, I believe they achieved.
I guess they're the definition of how you take the higher road.
Oh my God. Yes.
Because anyone in
Yes.
their shoes, they would just be like, I'm not doing that if you treated me this way. But they were just, showing how they were.
And you know what is also the level of scrutiny and hate against them? They were determined to prove themselves and everyone else that doubted their capabilities. Why bomber crews specifically requested black pilots to protect their lives in a segregated military? What does that moment say to you about what excellence actually does to people's assumption?
That it shuts their mouth.
Okay.
It's like, I cannot tell you what I think with words, but I'm gonna show you with actions. And that's exactly what they did.
Yes, that's what it is. And And you mentioned something earlier. Yes, it is their ability to behave better than the people that are hating on them, taking the high road. That is what actually changes people's minds. If someone is a bigot against you or against someone that you will not change them by showing them. I'll show you. It's just for you, for your self pleasure.
Talk is cheap.
Yes. When you behave as if you have a higher calling, you demonstrate that there is a better way and people can actually make a difference. Do you remember or have you seen the video of this guy that he goes to Ku Klux Klan's groups and he's a black man and he goes talk to them?
I'm not.
There is a show, I think. I never seen, I only see previews and stuff like that. But I have seen results because the guy is willing to sit with them. They realize, oh, this is an actual human being. So that's what it takes. If you actually want to change someone else's mind, it takes more than just complaining and telling them how wrong they are. It takes for us to behave better. I know it sounds like more work, but that's what it takes. After the war, they come home and they walk straight back into Jim Crow. They just won the war for this country. What would you have done with this kind of treatment?
Me even in their shoes, knowing how I am, red and durísimo. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. They knew what they were going back to. They knew how things were, nothing had changed, that they were able to show that your program does not define me. This is who I am, and you or your mom could think whatever you want, but I know who I am. Like, I know the person I am, and I know I'm not the person you say that I am. And I
Wow.
feel that kind of stays with you because you can think anything of me, but if I think that's not true, that's not who I am, then I get to stay with that. and not with the words that you say that I am.
I think these men were better than us today. They clearly love this country despite the oppression and hate, which is makes me ask a rhetorical question. How is it that they love the country more being oppressed, actually oppressed, and being hated, and with actual laws against them, and with an actual government against them, compared to us?
Yeah, I don't understand that
Who
either. I don't understand that either.
the level of ungratefulness to the progress that this country has made, especially on the backs of those who actually had to sacrifice everything, those who had a better attitude than us today, and the ones that actually had to struggle. That's the thing that I'm like, no, it is on us. We are called to act and behave better, to have more grace, to be more grateful.
And that kind of circles back to what you said. It's also the mentality of gratefulness, of thinking like, I could have been a slave, but I am not. And it's like us, we live in this society, and that said, your grandma had it hard, my grandma had it hard. And I'm pretty sure our grandparents are thankful for us being in the situations that we are at the moment. I guess, as to like, for example, my grandma had to work pretty young to being able to help out their parents with their other siblings. I don't do that. I wasn't sent to work so I could take care of my siblings. So, it's just kind of seeing it from a grateful perspective of how you have it better than the generation previous to you.
That's true.
And I think that's where all the grateful, because if you stay stuck in the past, you're not going to see the benefits that you have now that the people before you didn't have.
So again, the same question goes back. They were grateful. They acted better. They rose above the situation. What is stopping you from doing the same? What is stopping me from doing the same? When I was answering those phones, struggling with the accent, feeling the discomfort and the slight rejection, I did not get defensive. I turned it into an opportunity to connect with the customer, maybe with a small joke, something that reminded them that there was a real human being on the other end of the call. I made sure to listen attentively and went above and beyond to solve their technical problems. Over time, customers stopped hearing the accent first. They started hearing someone who knew what he was doing and actually cared. Excellence became the way through. The Tuskegee Airmen became so undeniably excellent that the people trying to block their way ran out of ways to do it. Maybe you have a wall of your own right now. Something or someone that decided what you were worth before you had a chance to show them. I just want to leave you with this then. Build something so good that they have to open the door. What would that look like for you this week? Imagine what becomes possible when the person everyone underestimates decides to become undeniable. Imagine what happens in your workplace, your home, your community, when you carry yourself with such excellence that you cannot be undermined. This is what the Tuskegee Airmen did, and I believe the same thing is available to you right now in whatever room you're walking into this week. So be excellent, be consistent, be undeniable. In 1941, the United States government set up a program designed to prove that black men could not fly. By 1945, those men have flown over 15,000 missions, 96 distinguished flying crosses, and became the most requested escort group in the war. In 1948, the United States military was desegregated. The experiment designed to confirm their inferiority became the evidence that dismantled that policy. The Tuskegee Airmen did not wait for the world to be fair before they gave it their best. They gave it their best because they understood that excellence carried with purpose is not just an achievement, it is a weapon, and they knew exactly how to use it. Thank you for listening to History I Just Learned. If this episode meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it this week. We will see you next time. Bye bye.